Well, we've been talking about Egypt. This is part two of a section about Egypt because Egypt is one of those great mysteries that we keep coming back to, and there's just so much there, but a lot of theories, and of course we weren't there, so it's really hard to kind of figure it all out. Um, but I have up behind me a board in which I'm listing some of the things that the Egyptian culture has brought into modern culture over the centuries through Greece and through Rome and through all the whole influence of that area from basically from Egypt and northern Africa all the way into say Ireland. Now there's a lot of information in there, but let's go look at this. Now, we don't even know where Egypt got their information because if you look at it, they just kind of sprung up there, and that's a whole other subject. There's some people like Graham Hancock who've been looking into this, a lot of great researchers. But let's just take a look at a little bit about what Egypt has brought into our culture. Back in Egypt, they had the calendar because they watched the stars, and they had a base 60, which is basically a way of calculating based on 60, 360, 30, and all the multiples. Basically a calendrical type of calculation. But the interesting thing about the way they calculated was because, you know, I don't know if you know about math, but math, you can use what they call a base, and we have a base 10 system, and base 2 is what binary is used for computers and so on. But they used a base 60 or 12 or whatever, and they did their math that way. Now, we also have the Torah, which is basically all the numerology system, the whole symbolism, the psychological things that are described in the tarot, all that stuff is out of Egypt. The idea of gods and demigods, and the gods interacted with the humans and all that. And then there's the powers of nature that were enumerated, astrology, like I said, the calendar, mystery schools, initiation, various rituals. The whole thing of death and rebirth went on for thousands of years in Egypt. The concept of the sun or Atum or the primordial power. They had a physical health discipline type of thing, not like yoga, but there were cleansing practices that they did. Cooperative effort, teamwork on a large scale, agriculture, accounting, trade. They had seafaring trade. They used plants and chemicals. They had a whole agriculture. They were great at geometry. They were great at irrigation, sound, voice, and speech, and the use of, you know, symbolism and pictorial writing, and God as the supreme power. All that amazing, amazing stuff that we don't even know where they got it. But out of Egypt came an awful lot of stuff over thousands of years. In our culture, if you say the Western culture started around 1066 AD, we're talking less than 1,000 years. The so-called Western culture, where we got into industry, and we got factories, and we have science, we have math, and, well, you know, the Renaissance and all that stuff. Now, what happened also in Egypt, they had some problems. They had corruption, they had politics and murder, and they had disease. And they had pollution of different kinds because there were things that happened there. They had climate change. They had volcanoes. They had wars. They had the ignorance of their past. Because as the civilization went on, they just had rituals, and the priests got involved, and they fought, and all that kind of stuff. And they had a loss of true knowledge of their own history. Only the priests could write. Now, you see, so much that Egypt brought to the modern culture. It's really quite astounding. Now, you can get into a discussion of where they found it, because if you look at the history, it's like all of a sudden it just seemed like, wait a minute here. Egypt, they know a long, long time ago, the northern part of the Sahara, all across northern Africa was inundated by an ocean at one time, long, long time ago. Many different cycles. And I heard one cycle on the History Channel, 15,000 years or so, that the Sahara, the northern part of the African continent, goes into a drought, or it becomes a wetland, or tropical. Now, think about that, for example. If the Egyptian culture, they say from 4,500 BC or 2,500, let's say we give it around 5,000 years. 5,000 years, you think about only 1/10 of that, 500 years, and go back where we were in the 1500s. Oh my goodness. I mean, it was primitive, you know. But 5,000 years, that's a long, long time. And what they had a chance to develop after 5,000 years was all this incredible stuff. Healing, meditation, going out of your body. They had systems of knowing what the organs are and the plants, and they traded, and my God, of course they had books and they had papyrus, and they traded with Babylonia. Tremendous, tremendous, tremendous civilization that was going on for a long, long time back around Egypt time. And so what I'm getting at is that there's an awful lot that we need to consider when you consider the history of Egypt and how it affects us, because you wonder, like, well, how did they do that then? And how did they last for such a long time when our civilization, we're about to destroy ourselves, the planet's falling apart? And what did they have to say about the past cycles of our planet? What did they have to say? Now, you get back into look at what they did here. They built out of rocks, huge rocks. The things they built lasted a really long time. They knew something. They must have had engineers. They must have known math. They knew how to lift things. So when you think about, okay, there's the face evidence. We don't see it all. That's the delusion that archaeology gets into now. We go, we find some ruins and go, wow, you know, we don't hear any sounds. We don't know actually what happened. We have little tiny bits of evidence, and some of our dating mechanisms are inaccurate. There's a lot of problems. But you take some common sense stuff and say, look, somebody back then knew a lot for a very, very long time, and they built things to last for eons. And what do they have to say? Maybe it's important for our culture. And that's why I get really excited about this stuff, because look, we're in a situation here on this planet. It's pretty obvious. You know, you just like, okay, well, what's the forward-looking thing going to happen? I mean, it can't be that good, you know, given what's going on. But we're going to get into that in a few more segments here. There's just an awful lot to talk about. I want to do quite a few pieces on this particular subject.